Her goals are to bring about transparency within our local government in regards to budgeting and spending, as well as utilizing the funds collected to offer the best services possible to the residents. So at this time, if you would, please welcome Penny Ransom.
Thank y'all to everybody that came out here today. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate the members that have began to group together and to form the civic page. What is the official name of what y'all call it? That was joining on Facebook.
Temple Civic Action Page?
Yeah. The
Temple Georgia Civic Action.
Temple Georgia Civic Action Page. And from my understanding, that's going to be utilized in a way to share information. So when you have certain people that have time to make council meetings or have certain interest in certain things and they're able to obtain that information, then it's a place to then share that information for other people. So, for instance, one of the things that we're fixing to have began with the City of Temple is our 2015 SWASH that was voted on a couple of years ago is being collected in 2016. According to our charter, the capital budget for the City of Temple has to be presented to the council in October. So that is a little over 45 days, 30, 45 days away. That capital budget is going to begin to budget the expenditures for your SPLOSH monies. I would love to see citizens that represent different age groups and different needs to begin to attend these workshops, to attend that budget. If we have parents that, I know I've had people call me and say, well, we need a dog park. We would love to see a dog park. Well, if those people don't come and let a council know that a dog park is a wish that they would like to have, when you get into setting that budget, that's the budget we'll be working for to spend our 16 or 15 SWASH in the year of 2017. So I would love to see that page be able, and I noticed there's already been something put up about the SWASH and the rules and things that regard SWASH, so it's a great page to go to. I would like to see everybody here join it. And I also want to say thank you to Ms. Atkins. She's also working with the page. And she's began videotaping the council meetings. And one of the things that kind of really got me about it is it wasn't just videoing to document. It was videoing to share. And I think the very first video, and Dawn, you can correct me, maybe 30, 40 views. Considering there might have been 3 or 4 people at a council meeting, that was great. The next video picked up more. The next, a few more. I think you've been doing this now about 4 or 5 months where you posted, and last month's video obtained so far 190 views. So it's reached people to educate people, and that's the point of this. This is money you have no choice but to pay. If you live in the City of Temple, I live in the City of Temple, you own a property in the City of Temple, you drive a car that is tagged in the City of Temple, you're going to pay taxes to the City of Temple, and that tax money is what funds your city. It's what provides your services. So the more you learn about the amounts that you're paying, your right to know what that total taxable amount is collected, your right to participate in how it's spent, that's a citizen's right. And I believe that's the way you become transparent in government, is by participating. The more participation there is in anything, the more transparent everything is. And that's on any level, not just in government. So I think the purpose of this is to kind of educate, get people involved, and I think this is the perfect timing due to the fact that we do not have 2016 SPLOSH money that is previously tied. We have one little question that's got to be answered that has to do with the sewer bond in regards to our SPLOSH money. But as we begin to set this budget, it is the perfect time. If your services that you enjoy here are done at the senior building, then the seniors who want to see improvements in services need to come to council meetings as we are preparing this capital budget. If you are involved in the rec department, you have younger children, and you want to see rec issues, this is where you start. You don't complain a year after. I know it happens, but this is where you get educated enough to know what to do prior to the council voting. And it's simple, and I think it starts simple, and I don't know how many of you were here, say, 15, 16 years ago. But if you were, you may remember when our school board had a lot of conflict. We had SPLOSH that was being collected, but it wasn't being spent. You had boats that were getting tied up, and they couldn't agree on where to spend the money. 16 years later, our school does not have to use our tennis courts. The school has their tennis courts. The school does not no longer have to use that ball field. they have their own ball field. Sometimes it takes time. It took some citizens getting involved. It took some citizens changing the makeup of the school board. The state might not have done it correctly, but eventually the school board began to kind of level out. They began to hire leaders who were good at managing personalities, so they were able to agree on common issues. And I think another great benefit that could come from a civic group is a civic group being able to hold our elected officials accountable to get them on the same page in regards to certain projects. So you might not agree on where you stand politically, but you can agree on certain projects, and that might be a great way to help bring the elected officials as well as the community together if we can come up with some projects and share that information. So I thank y'all very much for coming up here today.
Can I ask a question?
No, go ahead.
I'm curious why you chose to run for office.
Ooh. Okay, honestly, I'm gonna say this. I literally looked at myself as, no offense, I'm just gonna say it, as a hellraiser who accidentally got elected. That was literally the philosophy that I had. I mean, that was it. I had some issues with not being able to follow some budgeted money. Or I had some issues with some changed projects. As a taxpayer, you know, we were paying into one project and then that project kind of got scrapped and we weren't sure if we were going with another project. And so it began with as simple as asking questions. That's why I'm kind of focused on the SPLOST, because for me, look, I love SPLOST in the sense that everybody who shops in Temple pays that penny, not just people who live here. So I appreciate SPLOST in the sense that the truck drivers who come in here from all over and shop, a penny of that helps us to build ball fields and senior facilities. So I'm a proponent of SPLOST if it is spent correctly and if records are kept correctly. And when I went to pull SPLOST records at that time, it was a very difficult thing for me to do. I couldn't make sense of a lot of stuff. And when I got elected, I understood why, because our records were on the paper. They were in a shack and they were covered with a lot of rat feces. So I kind of understand now why it was hard to get a hold of some of those old records. But in that confusion, we ended up with a library that was a SPLOST project from a very old SPLOST, prior to anyone I think that's maybe on the council, that was a ballot issue. So we had to go back and complete that project because some money was spent on it. So it was a lot of correcting SPLOST type of projects. And so for me, that was what started it. I began to utilize my right as a taxpayer to make open records. I had questions, not so much I didn't like what I saw, it raised questions. And so I'm one of those people that have two philosophies. People fought and died for your right to vote. So I believe that if somebody shed blood somewhere to protect your right to be able to choose your democracy, then you should fill out a card and register to vote. I believe that. But on the same side, I also believe that whether you're a resident of a city or you're not a resident of a city, you have a right to know what goes on because you are a resident of the state of Georgia. You are a resident, I can't remember the exact quote, but from California to Washington, you're in the boundaries as a United States citizen and your rights were fought and protected. And so I believe you have to vote, and then if you do vote, you have a right to open records, open government. Georgia has a lot better open record laws than some states I've looked at. So we should really take advantage of the fact that people fought and argued for us to have a right to pass laws that allowed us to access our government. And I believe if you're doing that and you still don't like what you see, and you're going to council meetings and you feel like you're not being heard, then you might need to take it one step further and at least put your name in. In the district that I was running in, I had zero problem with the individual that was running for my ward. I liked her and I liked the job she was doing, but she would have been running unopposed. And to me, that doesn't give people a choice. So it wasn't that I had a problem with who was representing my ward at the time. I just did not want the people to have no choice but who was running my ward at the time. So sometimes, even not allowing someone to run unopposed, which Temple has had happen, I think, twice very recently, is to get involved enough to at least give the public a choice. So that was why I ran.
Follow up. So your experience on the council, is it what you expected? What's been the good? What's the good part and what's the bad part of serving on the council?
I believe that everybody who has a problem should run or have to serve. It should almost be mandatory. It is nothing like what I expected. Part of the worst is time frames. For me, I have felt like the last 2 years, the best analogy I have is that I feel like I'm looking through a glass window, I can see the fix. The fix is easy, but I can't get through the glass wall of needing votes, needing time, deadlines, charter. I mean, I can't get through that glass wall and get everyone on the same page or the same vision to fix. And so I think where Temple is definitely needing something to unite versus divide. So for me, one of the worst things is the division, because the division slows down what is slow anyway. Government is slow. Division brings it to a complete standstill. One of the best has probably been being on a council where I think we've kind of agreed on, how do I put this? I think we've kind of agreed on fixing certain things before necessarily jumping into something else. And that might look in some ways like it slowed things down. But the fact that we do have a library, that project is fixed. That was a smarter situation to purchase a PD, purchase a city hall with what money was there, and free up a building for a library, which saved us from making a second mistake or a third and having to use more taxpayers' money to finish and start a project. So I think we were slow for a little bit because we had to go back and get on page doing some things right, but the best part is some of those things have been done right. And they weren't done that way maybe a couple of years ago, so I'm proud of that.
I've noticed I come to the council meetings whenever we can, and there's been time after time that you have pointed out something where our city is not in compliance or where procedure is being wrong, and yet, because you don't have the votes, they continue doing it the right way, and then when it's proved that they did the wrong way. What can we as citizens do to help you out to make sure that they follow our charter and do the right thing?
I think you nailed it. Citizens. You know, I have the power. I mean, sometimes I almost feel like I had more power as an elected, as a citizen, than I do as an elected official. I feel like I could be more free, about my boys. Sometimes, they want your vote. Sometimes, a councilman wanting to vote comes campaign time, if enough people get together, you might get somebody to say they're going to change something. As an elected official, it's kind of hard. It's a lot harder, I think, citizens. I think that when you have citizens that watch their government, citizens that show up and support their government. If the government's not being watched anywhere, Temple, nobody's watching. What's anybody going to do? Sometimes it's citizen. You named it. It's citizen. And I think what you're trying to do with getting information out there is a good thing, not to help me personally, but to help the city. It's going to help the city. It's going to help anybody, past, present, and future, if that group grows. Because if you're keeping an eye on your citizens, an unhealthy government to me is a government that nobody ever shows up to see what's going on. That is not a sign of a healthy government. When you have a room full of people on 3 different sides, that's healthy to me. Because somebody's going to get a point across that at least an elected official might agree with. So to me, citizen, that's the answer. Citizens, period. Anybody else? Ms. Pam?
As an employee for the city, and also I live here in the city, how do I have a right to say anything when I work there? I know I'm a citizen, and but it's hard, you have to juggle it, but.
I will say that on the line for, this is my opinion, okay, what I'm expressing right here is my opinion. I have a city charter. That city charter is the city charter that governs this city. I think every resident in this city should have a copy. That might be something that the Civic Action Group wants to load up on a web page, is a copy of our city charter that anybody can print from home. The city charter that we rule up under, that governs elected officials, does not give elected officials the authority to interfere in day-to-day operations. So for me personally, what an employee has a right as a citizen to your rights of opinion, to your rights to know the Georgia Sunshine Laws are there for a citizen, regardless of where that citizen works. And as a quote elected official, I don't have the charter power to interfere with an employee's day-to-day work. So that would be something that the citizens need to hold elected officials accountable to. So maybe having a charter on a web page that can be.
So if the council people do get involved, then we can say something about it?
I believe there's probably protocol for that, and that would be something, and as far as where our charter, pull it out, you have a mayor, and our mayor does have the ability on some level to deal with day-to-day things that the council does not. Our charter allows for the mayor to act as the city administrator if he's not here or unable to. So the charter in one level does give you access to at least one elected official if your problem is not being solved at a city administrator level. But as far as your right to your opinion, no job can take away whether you work for a city, county, state. I mean, your rights are constitutional rights. And those rights, in my opinion, can't be, now if you're working in the private sector, they might be able to limit what you can do or say on certain things. But as far as your opinion and your right to open records in the city you live in should not be contained by, based on where you work. Those are things that, they're laws. So that'd be my question is just, look into the charter, see what,
I have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
In the charter, does it state how many days, how many hours that the mayor and the city administrator have to be there? Because a lot of times I've been up there and neither one of them, so you can't get anything resolved. It's like, hello, we're paying wages here and there's nobody here to help.
The mayor is a elected position, so I believe our elected pay, it's not, quote, a full-time position. I mean, I don't hold me to it. I mean, I think every quarter after they take out taxes, my pay is somewhere around $550 every 3 months, $550. So the mayor's position is not necessarily where he's supposed to be, but you should be able to have a message and leave a message at any time at City Hall for the mayor to contact you back.
I got no response.
Okay, then that would be something I
And
would
the city administrator.
give you the mayor's number before we leave. Definitely give you the mayor's number. And as far as the charter, no, the charter does not state hours.
See, that's where you need to come to a meeting and bring that out.
And,
What's the comment?
Was there a citizen group and they set hours for the mayor and the administrator?
well, when it comes down to policy, I mean, I believe that any type of,
He's not there doing his job.
I believe that when you're a citizen, one of the beauties of being in a citizen's group is that if a citizen's group, especially if you're attending meetings or watching the meetings, if you're having issues, and you see a need for a policy, that's a great way to contact your elected official and say, hey, I see that y'all might need a policy for this, which then a council member could bring to the table and set a policy, because we have the power to set policies outside of our charter or ordinances. So that's where a civic group, if you see a need on anything, where there'll be a policy.
If don't agree with this, it's a moot point.
Amen.
Because, hey, they're gonna back each other, well, I don't wanna be up here 20 hours a week.
But if enough citizens show up and tell them that's what we wanted, they work for us.
Exactly.
They work for
Well,
us. We don't work for them.
whenever we had a problem with the water up here, the hot water, she couldn't get it resolved. So I said, I'll take care of it. I went down to the city hall.
It goes to my slowness. I mean, that's exactly.
And it was like,
I
okay,
know.
what's the problem here? Well, so and so and so. I said, I don't want to hear excuses. I do not want to hear excuses. I want it fixed.
Yep.
We have a problem up here. We have seniors up here. We have kids. We have all sorts of this. Get off your duff. Do your job.
And that's where, I'm going to piggyback on that, and that's where I'm going to come back and say that sometimes a citizen who is a citizen can get more done as a citizen than a department head or an elected official if you're just talking to me on the phone, or you're calling, or you're stopping me in Ingalls. I can bring it up. But as an elected official, if you've got a person standing out in front of you who has gotten on public comment and they have followed and that's what this meeting I hope is about, is how to tell citizens. One thing that I will never do, I learned this lesson, 2 lessons a long time ago. We had a superintendent out here. There's nothing the city of Temple is not going through right now that in my level, on some level, our school board was not going through when I moved here. When I moved here, there have been 4 or 5 changeovers in superintendents. We had a board that was tied up with 6 members, 3 voting one way, 3 voting another. A lot of things were not getting done. But they ended up hiring within, and they hired a man from within who knew them. He had worked under them, and he knew how to manage personalities, and he knew how to give great advice. And one of the things he had said to me, we were arguing about something, and I said, this is just not right. What you're doing is not right. And he said, but everybody's opinion of what is right is not the same. And if you cannot allow your brain to understand that you're fighting for right, but their opinion of that right may differ for yours, and they're just as right as you are. So sometimes when citizens come, a council has to sit back and go, wait, this ain't about where I'm right or you're right, but is that citizen right? Is what that citizen's saying right?
It's what's best for the city. It's what's best for, it's not what the council wants, it's
is what the citizens of the city, and a lot of times if you have no citizens there and you're leaving it completely in the hands of a few elected officials who are getting staff reports or who are getting updates from a city administrator, and no one's saying that's any different. I mean, do you follow what, that's where I just think citizen involvement will show another side of what may be right. And one of the second things that he was really good about working on was following the chain of command. I don't jump it. I have learned that by the time I get way up and I can document who all I've been to and under, what I need gets done when I get up there. Because I can, so I think that's where being educated on first, what is the policy that the city has about public comment? You follow that. You follow what they say to get. Okay, if they don't do that, then what does the charter say? Who do you go to? Will you go to the city? If that doesn't work, who do you go to? The mayor. The mayor has the ability of the charter to recommend or bring forth anything to the city council that he deems appropriate. So if you can't get it brought to the council by the city administrator, the charter allows you the power to do that through the mayor. So I think first off is following that, understanding that chain of command, following it, and being able to show where you've gone, the bases that you've touched, so that when you get up higher and it comes to the council, then you're able to say, look, I did this, like you just said, I did this, they did this, they didn't make it to the council. That's the first I've heard about that.
It's been my experience that I've done that, and I've gone all the way to the council, presented it, and had a stone wall. And the reason is that I feel like the next step is people, and if people will not, if I had 100 people sitting there backing me on that, I would have had a different result. But you know, when there's 3 or 4 people in the audience, they are like this, thank you for your comment, you know, and that's it.
But I would agree and disagree, because if you're bringing something forth that is of a matter kind of like you did, then you pull the sunshine line. There's steps there. There's agencies that do oversee cities, and
Yeah.
a city does have to abide by their own ordinances and their own policies and their own charter. So at some level, there's a step up, and it's just having citizens involved and educated enough to know what the steps are you can take to simply know your goals.
It takes involvement too, though.
I agree.
It really does. People have to be involved.
They do.
Yeah.
They do. Is anybody else? Yeah, see, like, I wanted the pylon up here to blow fans. Couldn't reach anybody.
The wind's blowing the fan.
Although we paid to rent this, just to let y'all know, we paid to rent this space, but they didn't cut our power.
So, yes.
Yeah, we're going to on
Get
that.
your money back.
I think we should get our money back.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else? And like I said, please, and I appreciate Dawn for filming. I think that that's a great way to get information. And, you know, on that note, if who's managing the page has a way to upload the city charter in a PDF, that way anybody can print it out
It's
from
not
home.
on the city.
It may be, but if you don't have a link to it, people may not know exactly where our webpage has not been as user-friendly as I would like to see it,
We
so.
go to you for that, because I'd like to see every document they produce put up there.
Honestly, that's one of the things I was going to actually talk to the mayor about if he was here today, because I had someone mention yesterday that perhaps there may be someone else within the city that we can turn that over to who
Yeah.
might be able to get some things up a little bit quicker.
Jason does that. I'd like to see every time that the document.
Just announce it.
They're gonna have a piece of paper here. I'll get right there, but just sign your name, and if you want to sign your email, then the civic group will have a way to contact. And if you have any friends and you want to refer them and refer their emails, they can start to build an email list, so that way other people can be made up to date a lot quicker and in a more expedient manner. Yes, Adrian?
Anything I want to put on the site, I have to call Jason, and I'll take care of it. We don't have on site.
And I will tell you that I still, after 2 years, do not have access to city email. I spent about, what, Craig, an hour on the phone with Jason from my house, and he still could not get me access to city email. So we've got some issues there, and that is something that I've expressed at council meetings, but it's gonna be where also we need it more user-friendly, and the more public says we need it more user-friendly,
Yeah.
I think the more, the quicker you may get action. I don't think the council doesn't want it to be user-friendly, they just might need to
Who's
push.
responsible for granting access? Maybe someone is just not granting it.
Yeah, well, that's what I was told. I'm gonna pass this around. Yeah, please put your email and your name or contact number and let them begin to, start an email list. Okay, Rich, you good?
I consider Penny a good friend of mine, and I might be a little bit biased, but I'm going to tell you, after witnessing the way she conducts herself in the council meetings, she's a watchdog for Temple. She works hard to make sure that the money spent is spent correctly and not wasteful. Speaking of watchdogs, our next speaker, James Bell, is with the Georgia Watchdogs. James has been an activist for over 25 years. His coalition, the Douglas County Taxpayer Association, has been a watchdog for Douglas County for a decade. James received the Sam Adams Tea Party Award for his efforts to defeat 2 splash tax votes in Douglas County. He is a citizen journalist and records public meetings for public viewing. He has done dozens of open records requests that have shed light on how our government works. Today, he will be talking with us about open government and why we need sunshine laws. If you will, please welcome James Bell.
Appreciate you having me. If y'all care to come on forward, it would sure be nice to be able to talk to everybody up here. If y'all could, if you wouldn't mind.
Some won't move to the back, so I'm just
That's fine. I'm James Bell. I'm from Douglas County, from Lithia Springs. We used to have a city from Lithia Springs. It was 2 square miles. It didn't last long. It lasted probably 6 years. There was so much infighting, so much turmoil. We had no property taxation, but we had nothing else either. The county abandoned us. So I kind of got involved on a very local level there, tried to learn as much as I can. And I do want to talk about the sunshine laws of Georgia. Why do we have sunshine laws? But I want to, I guess, kind of address some of the things that you have already brought up. This concept of we're going to do it the way we want to do it. Okay, and I've heard that 2 or 3 times since I've been involved. I got involved because it was almost like whistleblowing. I heard the whistle blow for Temple, Georgia, and I knew that you needed some help here. You needed some help getting organized. You needed citizen input. You needed to be able to communicate. There was no public meetings ongoing. And it's just basically whatever happened in City Hall, happened in City Hall, and it pretty much stayed there. So hopefully what we're trying to do is organize, get people more involved. Don't be discouraged by the turnout today. There's a lot of people that wanted to be here that could not. We probably would have had 2 or 3 times as many people here had it not been a conflict. We just have to find the right time and place to hold your meetings. Someone mentioned how much time do your council members should they spend? Well, you can't expect too much out of somebody that's being paid, a few bucks. And frankly, they're part-time people. What they should be able to do is, as they go through their life, and they should be addressing their constituents in their own time. But what they need to be prepared for is when they come to that meeting, they sit there for that 2 hours, they need to be prepared. That's what you're paying them for, is to prepare for that agenda and to deliver that agenda and take the votes and do the right thing when they come there. And if they're doing their job there, they're earning every penny and then some of what little bit of money you're giving them. So don't expect too much out of them. But again, what you do expect is accessibility. You should be able to email them. You should be able to call them on the phone. Every one of them should be having a town hall meeting and talking to constituents and getting feedback from them as to what the public wants. If you're going to rely on the 6 people that show up at City Hall, you're going to have the same 6 opinions, and very few people are really going to be involved. So you're going to have to encourage other people to get involved, and there's a reason to be involved. And so I think as we go on, I think you're going to see this type of meeting expand. More people are going to come out to the meetings and want to be more involved. It's not the sexiest issues to be talking about. Sewer lines and potholes are not the sexiest topics to be talking about. But it's stuff that affects us all, right? It's stuff that directly affects us. And it's important to a lot of people. And we expect those folks to go do their job. You know, we don't have to worry about potholes and sewer lines. They're supposed to be doing their job. But of course, that doesn't always happen. The issue of the website. Of course, I'm a big person. I think the world, if you're an organization or a business, a government, the website is the greatest tool you could ever have to communicate. You can sit at home. You don't have to attend meetings. If you've got a good website, there's no need to attend a meeting. You should be able to know what's going on, how things are going, what things were voted on. You should at least be able to go there and view what happened in the last session of your council. So yeah, you got problems. You got problems with outdated information on your website, lack of information on your website, and I'm not talking about every receipt ever issued. I'm talking about your basic documents from the charter and your ordinances, and all this stuff must be up to date. And you don't want citizens going to your ordinance page and your ordinance is 6 years old, and there's new ordinances in there. And how do you expect people to follow your ordinances if they don't know? You expect everybody to come run down to City Hall and try to get some information out of the people at City Hall. That shouldn't happen in 2016. We should be able to go to our websites for our counties and our cities and get as much information as possible. And again, their email addresses, their phone numbers are not listed there. Do a little homework tonight. Go home and look at any other city around you and see how much contact information those cities have about their public officials. Someone asked, I assume, she an employee? You an employee? You asked, your question was about what can you do? What you can do is follow the law. And you follow the law. If someone else wants to break the law or wants to deviate from that, let them do that, but I would establish it in writing. I would put it in writing as a memo saying, I believe it should be done this way, or that the law reads otherwise. I'm not going to be responsible for breaking the law. You can be held responsible. Do you do open records requests?
Yeah.
See, that's another thing. She could be held up to $1,000 fine, up to $2,500 fine on subsequent offenses, if she does not follow the open records laws of Georgia. And we're going to get into that. She's responsible. She can't have the mayor. She can't have Penny. She can't have anybody else telling her, well, don't hide that, don't give that. She's violating the law, and it's going to come down on her. So she needs, every county, every city official, every employee that works there simply needs to follow the law. There's actually whistleblower laws in Georgia that says that whistleblowers, employees of the government, are protected from when you blow the whistle. They cannot fire you, retaliate against you, and that type of thing. So there is our legislature recognize that we got good employees, works for us, but they're often misled or misguided or threatened. Their jobs are threatened if they don't go along with the corruption or the misinformation that our politicians want us to go through. Okay, let's get into Georgia Open Records Law. It's we call it the Sunshine Law. Why is it the Sunshine Law? Because the sunshine exposes and sheds light on everything we do. Why in the world do we need sunshine laws? Okay, why do we have to force our elected officials to follow the law or to follow a law? They're our friends. They're our neighbors. They want to represent us. Why in the world would they want to hide anything from us? Okay? And ask yourself that question. Why do we need to force them to be open? Okay? Why? Because as good a person as they may be a sponsor of the ball team, they may be the minister at the church, they may be the best person you could ever imagine. There's something about sitting around that circle with council members and commissioners that they begin conspiring with each other. They begin trying to build this little coalition, this 3-2 voting, this this type of thing. And it goes on. I don't care where you're at. It's called politics. It's politics, and it's ugly. What we're trying to do, this is not us against them, folks. This is not us against them, and it should never be viewed as this group against this group. Nothing we say, and it's hard to keep personalities and personal issues out of the public's business, but we have to try to do that. That is, I don't care, I don't have to like you, okay? I don't have to like you to get along with you and to do the right things and to make sure whatever goes on in that city council or that commission room is done the right way. We don't have to like each other. We don't have to agree with each other, but there is a set of rules and set of laws, set of ordinances, a charter that we should all be going by. It's not about how I feel today, and it should be consistent. That is, what the previous mayor did, we criticize, but because the mayor's our friend now, we don't want to touch him. We don't want to hurt his feelings, and we don't want to embarrass him, so we're not going to say anything. Unfortunately, I've lost friends that way. I've helped people get elected, and they want to go up there and do something stupid, and I call them on them, and of course it hurts their feelings, and we are no longer friends because they felt like, I called them out on something, and it's kind of tough. But we do have a sunshine law in Georgia. There is open records and there's open meetings, and we'll just kind of go through some notes here. And we hope to have some books, by the way. They did not come in on time, but there is a couple of. It is the First Amendment Foundation, working with the Attorney General's office, produces this little booklet. The first part of it is kind of a layman's term, and the last part of it is actual law. And you can read the law for yourself. There is no guessing about what the law is. So let's talk through some of this. Let's talk about open records. How many's ever done an open records request? How many's ever fulfilled an open records request?
Usually not.
Okay, so we're generally familiar with this. That is open records. Here's what up front I want to recommend this to you. Is it's hard to find records 5 years ago. It may take a little time to recover those records. But as things happen, get in a routine of the next day, or maybe the staff could just say, this is where this website issue comes in. It should be almost automatic that when certain documents are produced, they should be scanned, they should be loaded to a website.
Yes.
Of course, you have to have access to your website. I have a couple organizational websites that I run. I have the access to the back door. I can go in there and post a post, add content, add photographs, whatever I want. Just like I'm doing an email, just like I'm doing Facebook. It's that easy. And it should be that easy for anybody to go in and load documents to your website. That's an issue that I think should be number one. Get your website going with a good website, accessible to everybody. You'll be able to load documents, and she won't be bothered with your open records request because they're already published. And yes, 2 people are going to ask for that document, but if you put it online, people will at least know when they go to your city website that these documents are there and they exist. And you'll never know who will be looking at your website, but just a reassurance to say, well, all that's there. It's all there. Our minutes of the meetings, the agenda. Frankly, I believe all contracts, if a mayor signs a contract, I believe all contracts should be scanned and loaded immediately. Carroll County used to do this, and I'm not sure they're doing it anymore, but they literally had a bank register log. Every time they wrote a check, they would add it to their database, and you can look up there every day. You can see they wrote 6 checks and who they went to. That's, to me, in 2016, that should be some basic record keeping.
The state of Georgia doesn't have a law that cities, state, counties publish everything on.
There is a statewide database website for documentation. Douglas County is behind on some of their documents. I'm sure Carroll and Temple probably have never used that. There is a database there. I think it's called Open Georgia. I'm sorry, I don't know it off the top of my head. There is a website for data dumps. You dump your data, your basic documents. And again, there's certain things you need to prioritize what should be on that website. Certainly agendas, certainly basic documents of month to month should be on there.
So they're breaking the law by not publishing these.
No, I don't know that they're breaking the law. I don't know if it actually requires them or whether it's just there as a service.
I worked for the state of Florida for 22 years.
Yeah.
They had a law. I worked for the county. every document we published had to be put on the internet. We had 5 people full-time scanning into
Yeah,
the internet.
I don't know that the state law does that, but that would certainly be something for your city to just consider.
Well, there are several of us who have begged for this for a number of years now, to ask them to at least just put the minutes. We asked for video, which now that Don and Richard are doing the video on there, it's great, but we had to do it ourselves, but we can't get the minutes from them until they produce them, and we begged for them to put the minutes on the website. And what do we do to make them do it?
Well, I don't know, what do you do? I mean, you can, do you have pitchforks? Can you round up?
That's a fun.
Can you round up some pitchforks? I don't know, I mean,
Don't leave with a pitchfork.
sometimes used to pitchforks work well, okay? But what you can keep doing is, and what I hope to do out of Georgia Watchdog is produce a little list of what you should be doing and what you can do to help improve communications with the public. One of those is to keep basic documents in a timely fashion on your website so people that want to know or are curious. And yes, you can go down there one at a time. You can have 5 people asking for the same document over and over and over. Or you can just publish it and have everybody look at it. Think about this. You're not an island. You may have businesses in Georgia or in the world that is looking at Temple, Georgia to move here. They may want to come see how you operate your business. It's like somebody driving up to your house and you've got, I joke about my neighbors having, their retirement is in the junk metal they got stored in their yard. And when they retire, they're going to cash in all the junk metal. People judge you by the way your front door looks, right? You drive up to your house. Same thing with the website, or same thing with the city. When they go there, you expect, in 2016, you expect some basic data on your website that people can look at without anybody knowing. Nobody needs to know that you're inquiring about the last minutes of the meeting or what SPLOST projects you had approved. That should already be there. It should be accessible in some way. And it should be searchable.
Yes.
It should be searchable. These are basic stuff that in 2016, I would expect it to happen because it is so easy now. You need a good webmaster that is not being controlled, that is not being dictated to. Perhaps, in fact, you should have a webmaster who really should have no other activity other than teaching somebody else how to access it, how to load documents. You should control your own website and the content that goes there. You shouldn't have to hire anybody. You've already hired someone. You've got a clerk. Clerk is responsible for the record of your city. Legally and morally, she's to protect those records. If somebody wants to manipulate records, she shouldn't be involved in manipulating records. Let whoever wants to manipulate and do them, let them take the charge for violating laws. But open records, the simple thing, do it in a timely fashion. If you think you're going to need something, or if they're just the routine documents you need every month, I would go ahead and do a request and ask that they just automatically go ahead and do. I think you can do a reoccurring open records request to say, I request every month to give me this, and the next morning they should be sitting there waiting for you. If they're not going to put them on the website, they should have them accessible because they know you want them every month. And you've already got an open request that says, I want reoccurring, I want these basic documents every month in a reasonable fashion. And you know they've got 3 days to respond to you, not give you the documents. They've got 3 days to tell you, I've got an issue. These documents are stored in the shed.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to uncover it. We're going to have to sanitize and uncover your documents before we can get the documents to you. But we'll get them to you. It's going to take 10 days, not 3 days. But they got to respond to you one way or the other in 3 days.
Is there a time limit on how long they can not
Produce documents.
Yeah, produce documents. I mean, because they haven't ratified the minutes for how long?
Well, they can't.
How long has it been?
Different ones, different months.
They can't. Okay, look, they can't give you something that does not exist. They should be able to give you drafts of documents. If they've produced them, they are public documents. Even if they are drafts and they have not been approved, unapproved minutes should be marked unapproved minutes. And they should be separated out from approved minutes. Approved minutes are generally signed and dated by the
Right,
people
right.
approving them. So you know the difference in an unsigned document is not a.
But there's no state law.
No, they've got 3 days to respond to you as to when either they're going to give them to you in 3 days or they're going to tell you why they can't give it to you in 3 days. Okay?
Jane,
Yes.
was a created document with a secretary's notes or a city clerk's notes or whatever, whoever the person taking the minutes down there,
And-
with their notes qualified?
As I understand it, if somebody's jotting notes, that is a matter of public record. If they're doing it officially for the county and they're jotting minutes down, if commissioners are jotting things down, of course, do they go and throw it in the trash can? They probably do. The other issue, and I'm glad you brought that up, these alternative things we got now. What about text messaging? Well, if it's on a county phone, their private phone is not your business. A county phone, if they're issued phones and a public phone number, and they're communicating, those text messages should be open records. Are they deleting them? Probably, because they don't want you to know what they've been discussing, and they can easily do that, and who's going to know that they ever did that?
I want to kind of piggyback on that. I had two occasions. One where I was in a meeting and the city attorney was trying to say something, so instead of talking, she kind of wrote it down and slid it at the time on a piece of paper, and I wrote back, and then after I got through writing back, I wrote up underneath that open record. So if anybody had asked for that, I would have had no problem. I had said, what is that? Another time I had someone actually come up to me after a meeting and said, the papers that you were looking at when you were talking about the sewer bond, can I get that? And my answer was, yeah, it's a document, it was up here, it's open, but do you mind coming and not getting my copy, but coming and getting a copy directly from City Hall so you can verify that I was looking at something from City Hall? To me, that's being transparent, and I think if you see anything like that going on during an open meeting and that's a document being created, if you're there, ask for it. I mean, I have no problem handing over a note page or my figures if that's what I'm sitting there doing, because it's transparent.
Do we have the right to ask the city council not to use their personal electronic devices during the actual meeting?
No. No.
The open meetings class that we had to go to in January said there's been an unofficial opinion on some of that, and I believe that might be something that's being waited on. That had to do with council members, a quorum, texting each other during a meeting, and somebody suspected they were deciding to vote. And so I think that may be one of the things that's actually, they were telling us.
It should
in
be out of
meetings, don't
courtesy,
do it.
the
Just
courtesy
do it
of the
by
committee you sit on,
Yeah, so don't
and
do
the
it.
courtesy of the public there, that they are not distracted by, I mean, you think could be playing Pokemon Go, as far as I know.
Some of them do.
Okay, and they could be doing whatever they do there. I mean, out of respect, they should not be distracted from what is being said around that table. And if they're texting each other, and I did, the one time I went to City Hall, I noticed that a citizen, not the council, but a citizen was texting one of the policemen in the room, and they sat there and giggled and chuckled at each other back and forth, which was very distracting rude and distracting, quite frankly. But that's people doing what they do with electronics these days. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, and it just breeds suspicious. Well, like, why can't you put the phone down and take care of business? Why you keep texting? What is so important that you are distracted? But again, if there's no ruling on it, there's no law on it. Quite frankly, if I understand the mayor controls those meetings, if I was mayor, I would ask my council members, please cut off your devices. Your council member in the last video, his phone goes off. Okay, phone goes off, and then he said, "Oh, I'm at a meeting. I'll get back with you." And I thought, I mean, come on, let's cut your phones off. Let's act like we're doing business, and act like you're taking care of business. So let's talk about what does open records have to do with open meetings. Well, Douglas County, they created this SPLOS committee that's going to pick our SPLOS projects. And so they kept saying, well, we had a meeting the other night. And so I said, well, what meeting? You never told us about it. The media wasn't there. How can you hold a meeting behind closed doors with the pick? Well, they said, well, it wasn't our committee, it was a citizens committee. Well, so I do what I do. I did an open records request. And the request came back, no documents responding to your request, that it was a private committee, a citizens committee that formed, and we don't control that. Well, I bring it up at a meeting, and the lawyer goes, well, if it's a citizens meeting, it's their business. If the government creates it, it's a public meeting. And so the next week, then, that was 10 o'clock in the morning. About 4 o'clock that afternoon, I got an email from the county saying, here's your documents. Well, here's the agenda for the meeting. I don't think they had minutes of the meetings at the time. But lo and behold, there's the documents I was looking for, and it established what they did at that meeting. So, of course, the second meeting was open and advertised and that type of thing. So this is the importance of kind of preempting stuff. That if you see something going wrong and you know an illegal meeting is going on, I filed a complaint with the Attorney General's office and told them that I feel like this is a violation of open meetings. Here's their email and I got an email that said, we are establishing a committee. It shut the door on their little argument that this somehow was a citizen-created committee. So through the Attorney General, I don't know what she does. I'm sure, I can imagine, if she gets 1 or 2 complaints from me, she's probably getting hundreds of complaints statewide. Just like I know there's been complaints filed here in Temple with the Attorney General's office, because they are the unofficial mediators. There is no law that really protects us other than lawsuits, but they're so-called unofficial mediators to try to sort this out before it gets into legal issues. So hopefully they're vigilant on that. But that's how an open records can turn into opening up the meetings. And now, once meetings are open, I'm able to go in with my camera. And of course, once I videotape and put it out there to the public, the 5 people that were citizens that were in the room saw it. But now we've got access to 1,000 or 2,000 people can view the videos if they want to watch the video. More importantly, the people on those committees and our government thinks the whole world's watching them now. Because generally work sessions are not video recorded or even audio recorded. Ours is audio recorded on the county level. So that's how, but open meetings, they must give you some notice, even on emergency meetings, unless it's just you had a hurricane, a tornado, and it blew your town down and they're meeting that afternoon. Generally, they need to give you a 24-hour notice so you can plan to be there and the media can show up. And that generally your regular meetings are generally publicized and well in advance. You know they're going to be there at a certain time and place. And one thing I recommended to Penny was going back to work sessions. That is, don't try to do a work session and your business session at the same time and trying to work out all that detail. It gets real ugly. It can be long. And I mean, if you're spending 3 and 4 hours at a council meeting, why not do 1 meeting at 1 hour at a work session one day, and then a week later, or even a day later, or even an hour later, do an official meeting. Now you've got your business worked out, and you come and vote on it and take care of business. You can't vote in these work sessions. You can build a consensus and get a feeling for what people want to do with issues, but you can't take an official vote. And there's a thing called consent agenda. Things that are routine and always, yes, we got to approve these contracts. Those are generally put on consent agendas. And they vote on it as a package of 5 items. Everybody, and was no opposition in work session to maybe pull one item out and discuss it independently of all the others. And so I don't like consent agendas, but it does speak. You had a 3 or 4 hour meeting the other night here, and it's a long, long, long night. So some of that stuff can be kind of condensed a little bit. Things that are routine and there is no debate about. Okay, and at least you know in advance there's a consent agenda. I appreciate everybody that goes to your meetings and speak up. There's nothing like they will try to hide facts from the public, and by standing up, and even if you just bring up what happened at the last meeting to make sure people understood what took place, and you stated it from the public's point of view, you better be concise. You got 3 minutes, right? You got 3 minutes to state. I was at a school board meeting, and thank you, Joe.
I really enjoyed it. I wish we could stay longer.
No problem. Thank you for being here.
Okay. Let us know when there's nothing.
Absolutely. So, I went to a school board meeting and had one guy, former teacher, wanted to speak, a little criticism about what was going on with this electronic education program. Gets 3 minutes. Of course, they've got the damn egg timer going. And you can hear it ticking when they cut it on, and when it gets to their 3 minutes, it starts beeping, and it'll beep till you shut up, right? So you get, I got to shut up. My 3 minutes are up. Well, then right behind him is this, what I call door-to-door salesman, trying to sell them electronics for the classroom, audio and video. They got 20 minutes to talk about, to try to pitch their pitch to them. I thought, you had one guy, and you gave him 3 minutes. Not that he needed, he said enough in his 3 minutes that, they got the message loud
Well,
and
we
clear.
think, James, about our mayor, this mayor's not really placed, unless something's really got long, it's not been, I don't recall, does anyone recall our new meetings having a time limit?
The mayor hasn't, but some of the other people in the room have gotten upset over people voicing their opinion.
Well, and here's the problem with being inconsistent. If you don't set that policy, then somebody's going to say, well, you gave them 7.5 minutes and you cut me off at 3 minutes. And that, the chairman or the mayor has that discretion, but you really need to follow a rule. That is, if people haven't signed up in advance, and there's one person on the agenda, some governments set a 20-minute time limit, or 20-minute time limit, and if you've got 20 speakers, you're all going to get 1 minute each, unless you want to give your time and you're redundant. If you've got 4 people, you get your 5 minutes each. So you break your time up. That 20-minute slot is the public's time. And I've been interrupted in my 3 minutes. My chairman has interrupted me, and I told him, Mr. Chairman, this is my 3 minutes. Okay, you do your time. I'm going to do my time. This is my 3 minutes. Give me my 3 minutes and let me speak.
Our meetings are not taken up with the public. They're taken up by, in one particular instance, our administrator read a paragraph twice, the exact same thing. And they know that people don't like to come because it is so long. So it appears that they intentionally make it long with nonsense stuff, and drag it on and on and on. So
a good organized chairman who can move things forward and keep pace going and stuff. I noticed when you had a discussion with your attorney online, it was painful to watch. Everyone sat there in silence. Your mayor cannot turn your meeting over to a lawyer and have your lawyer run your meeting for it. It's his job to run that meeting. He can give him the floor. Then it goes back to the mayor. The mayor should have said, are there any motions? Hearing no motions, we're moving forward. And been done with that instead of sitting there for 3 minutes, listening, waiting for your lawyer to... Your lawyer's not going to make... He cannot make a motion. He is not an elected official. Your board, your council should not be expecting a lawyer to make a motion. He should have just moved forward with the meeting. Is there a motion on this issue? If not, hearing none, I'm moving forward. We move on with business. And so you move it forward. It was just painful watching it. And it was just too long and too drawn out. And I thought, just move forward. Obviously, they didn't want a motion and no motion is going to happen. So the mayor has, under parliamentary procedure, he has the choice to move that meeting. Roy, I want to go ahead and bring up Roy here, and I'm going to just introduce Roy. He's going to tie in, hopefully, some of the things that I have said with some real-world experience about his experience. Roy Sparks ran for our county commissioner in Douglas County. He's a property owner here in Temple, Georgia, and he has done more open records requests. He's blown more whistles and done all that good stuff that good citizens do when they are part of a watchdog group. And Roy's going to share with us, I hope some of the open records requests and some of the results of open records requests and how important they are. So this is Roy Sparks.
Thank you. In my email, it said I had an hour and a half to speak.
It was a typo, Roy. I apologize.
You got
I know, you got to wait, they had to go.
Let me just give you a little information about me. I opened a construction company in Hiram, Georgia in 1985. And operated a construction company many years, built over 350 buildings around Georgia, a third of those in Paulding County. I've been a watchdog in 2 counties, Paulding and Douglas. Because understand, my business is in Paulding. I've always lived in Douglas since 1978. I served on the chamber board 11 years as a director. I got out of the chamber because they got political. All right. years ago in 2008, things started bottoming out. I'm laying people off, letting people go every other week. Everything's coming down. But yet Douglas and Paulding County both raising the millage rate. I said, we got a problem. People's losing salaries and they're raising the millage rate. Where does that come from? So I started going to the meetings, started attending a lot of the authority meetings, filming them. And going to the meetings, I found out they would give the speech and I'd do an open records request to get a document to back up the speech. I found out right quick the speech and the document didn't match. All right, the commissioner in Paulding County, the chairman got up. We're creating jobs in Paulding County. We just brought in this company that's bringing 110 jobs to Paulding County. Their development authority gave them 5 acres of land. They gave them $50,000, omitted all the permit fees, did all kind of free bells and whistles. We're getting 110 jobs. So after the first of the year, on the first of the year, you got to turn in an application for your license, right? After the first of the year, I requested a lot of applications from a lot of these companies that have brought jobs. This one, 110 jobs. Application for business license, 27 jobs. A lot of that's going on. I call it fictitious economic development. All right, another thing, Douglas County months ago, they had a consent agenda with a bunch of items on it. One of those items was approving for the commission chairman to sign all the contract employees' contracts. Douglas County, everybody, the department heads are all one-year contract employees. They're not under the merit system. Well, a commissioner spoke up and said, I'd like to discuss something on this consent agenda item. So the chairman knew he had a problem there. He said, well, let's pull that one off and vote on the rest of them. Let's talk about that one thing so it doesn't mess up the rest of it. And she said, I want to talk about some salaries. The chairman said, we've already talked about salaries. We did that at the budget meeting. I was at the budget meeting. James was at the budget meeting. They never discussed salaries at the budget meeting. He looked at the commissioner and said, you're lying. We've already discussed that. So I'm sitting there and said, no, you didn't. And we got it on video. So I did an open records request to get 5 years of all contract employees. I want their contract and I want their salary for 5 years. Guess what? In the last year or two, what had happened? The commission chairman had gave $20,000 raises to some of these employees. County employees getting pretty much nothing. Some of these people got $20,000 raises in 1 and 2 years period. The other commissioners didn't even know it. They just authorized him to sign the contract, not knowing he's manipulating the numbers. These are things you find out in open records. And the other problem with open records is you get one document, and when you get that document, you read it, then you got to get 5 more documents to understand that document. So it will wear you out. And I filed open records all the way to Homeland Security. I brought an issue out not long ago in Douglas County. It was all in the papers. It was on the news. I actually turned the story loose the week before the primary election and told the reporter, I said, you can hold this story until after next week so you'll know it's not political. I'm doing this for the protection of people in Douglas. And what it was is on our website it says, we've got a hazmat team. If hazardous materials are dumped in our county, we can jump on it. Well, I've been knowing for a long time that was a ghost team. They didn't really exist. So I filed an open records request with Homeland Security. You know how long it took them to answer my open records request? 3 hours. So they sent back, Douglas County has received all of these funds. Right here, this was received to create a hazmat team to buy equipment. The equipment had been thrown in a corner with dust and cobwebs on it. The hazmat team had not had training in over 3 years. Well, I exposed this. Commissioner Chairman put an ad in the paper that I'm lying, spreading rumors. Well, anyway, after the 3rd time he did that is when I actually let this story out. Well, me and the guy at Homeland Security, I ended up getting a relationship with somebody at Homeland Security in FEMA in the state of Georgia. So the story broke, and I called up the guy from Homeland Security. I said, the story's out. It was on the news. Channel 46. And I said, now the public knows. And the gentleman said, sir, said, I thank you for your phone call, and I just want to let you know, now that you've informed me of this situation, my oath of office requires me to come out and investigate. That was a week before the primary. The day we were voting in the primary, there were 3 people investigating Douglas County. Came out and took pictures of the equipment stacked up with dust on it. They took pictures of stuff that had been outdated 4 years. Their sample packages to test chemicals, outdated, 2012. They found out what I said was correct. There'd been no physical training in 3 years. Training has to be done every year for those people. They've done some computer stuff, but no physical training. But yet they took Homeland Security money. So stuff like that you find out from doing open records. And when you file these open records, you got to be real specific, as close as you can, because there's times I did one open record sometimes 4 and 5 times before I'd say the right word of what I wanted. They'd send back, we don't have record responses to your request. Let me tell you one you got to laugh at. Paulding County Airport Authority. I went up and spent the day going through a lot of minutes and a lot of books. They just piled them on the table, and I put a sticky note on everything that I wanted a copy of. Well, I got a particular document, a very damaging document. It ended up in the hands of attorneys in Atlanta. So later on, I filed an open records request and asked for that document. Come back. We don't have records responsive to your request. I already had the document in my hand. So I requested it and said it another way. I said it 4 different ways. And finally, the last time, I said, well, I'm going to send you a copy of the document. And I know you got it because I've already got it, but I want you to know that I'm getting this document because it's going public.
And that has happened.
Yes. And the attorneys doing the lawsuit about the airport stuff, I went down and met with them, and I handed them that document. It proved a whole lot of things. And just like there, a lot of times you can go sit and look at the documents. All right, on your minutes and stuff, you can ask for the draft minutes. Approved or unapproved, they're supposed to give you a copy, even if they're not approved. But something I would suggest is for y'all to consider trying to get an ordinance in that 45 days from the meeting, they have to be approved. And that could be done through an ordinance. Get other people involved, pass a city ordinance that 45 days, each person is fined $100 if the minute's not
So
passed.
that would kind of be bad, because I know like what I ended up having to do last month, because where I got extremely confused is there were so many months of minutes, and each one of the packets that I was given had a different draft, and things were changed that were not asked to be changed for the month before. So I spent about 2 hours in the living room floor with every draft of minutes that had not been approved. Some had 4 or 5 drafts, until it was insane. And the way that our council tends to operate is that as long as you have some minutes presented before the next regular meeting, you're staying within the law, whether they're approved or not. So that may not be a bad idea to not only have a draft presented, but actually be able to get them approved. So that's not.
Yes, and do that you can do that through an ordinance.
Right.
And the lady talking about doing stuff, is she still here that works there?
No, she had to go home.
Well, those people got to watch, because sometimes in your employment stuff, they will state you can't be politically involved and support candidates. You have to be careful of that.
To a point with campaigns.
When you do your open records request, do not ask questions. Ask for a document. And go ahead.
Question. It appears that our administrator is very fond of memos, and they will get their packets with all sorts of memos in there with information that the citizens are not privy to. And so there are times that there's information in those memos because we don't know what he's done there. We don't even know what to ask for. We know something's wrong, and it's been circumvented, using a memo.
It's open.
But
Well,
what do you
when
ask
asking,
for to get them?
again,
Would you
in
just
a
ask for
timely
memos?
fashion, if you'll ask for any memos created by your administrator from this date to this date that has been presented,
Should those packets also not be on that they give to the council members? Are they not, should they not be on the website so that we'll see what they're getting?
It should be, but they don't want it on there. They don't want you to know what they
Well,
fix to
anything
vote
on
on.
the website.
Well, that's why they're not transparent at all.
No, they're transparent like Alabama duct tape. You can't see through it. They wrap it up with it, and you can't see through it. Another thing to point out is the questions. Like if you ask a question, they can refer it back and not answer. They don't have to ask questions, but you ask for a document. A situation that came up this morning in a conversation while I was driving here, a person's trying to get some documents from 8 years ago in Douglas County. They told her it's over 5 years old, she can't get it. She's trying to find out some stuff about a SPLOST years ago. And I told her, I said, well, you need to go back and find out when that particular item was passed. Look in the minutes, because in the minutes it'll
Yes.
say the numbers and stuff. She said, I didn't think about that. I said, well, there's all kind of ways of getting your information. The thing you got to understand is, I was taught as a kid, go get a job, go to work, pay your bill, elect people to office, and get back to work and stay out of City Hall. You can't fight City Hall. Well, I've went against my race in the latter years. The City Hall is not taking care of us in the county commission. Most of them are not. A lot of them have good intentions, but a lot of what we got going on today is the family plan and buddy plan.
Yes.
Me being a contractor, I used to do a lot of buildings for counties and cities. But what happened over the years, the buddy plan came in, and the cousin was the purchasing agent, and all of a sudden, my bid would get beat $50. I quit bidding it because I seen the buddy system going on, and there's a lot of corruption going on.
Good old
And-
boys.
And the way you find a lot of it is through open records. For instance, you can ask, and it could be Board of Education, anything to do with government is subject to open records. Let me tell you one that happened. We got a development authority out in Douglas County. The director, his salary is $80,000, $81,000 a year. So months ago, I filed an open records request, and I know how to play games. I like to play checkers, okay? I like to figure out your move. I filed an open records request. I said, I want to find out what Chris Pumphrey's salary was for the last 5 years. I want to know what his salary was. Well, they sent me back a list of his salary for 5 years. I then turned around and filed an open records request. I said, okay, I want a copy of all 1099s and W-2s for 5 years for Chris Pumphrey. Just so y'all know, a W-2 is subject to open records. They can blot out the social security number and his address, but the rest of the information they got to give you. You know how long it took me to get the W-2s? Over 2 months. I filed a complaint with the Attorney General's office because the county attorney sent back, Roy, W-2 is personal. That's not subject to open records. Can you give me some case law? Talking to me like I'm a lawyer, okay? So I turned in a complaint to the Attorney General's office, and the lady answered me the next day. Well, I called Renee, and she does a lot of computer stuff. She said, you just got an answer back from the Attorney General that W-2s are subject to open records law. So I said, well, will you send that to Joe and ask him that, will that help explain his case law that he wants? It still took me 8 weeks. But you know why they didn't want to give me W-2s? They did not match by $150,000 a year.
Oh, that much.
Woo! His salary is roughly $81,000, but he gets a bonus.
Oh,
Let me tell you how he gets his bonus. Let's say this ball field is a project he brings to town. The bond attorneys that have to do all the bonds for that project, and typically they get $500,000 and up to do all the paperwork. Whatever the attorneys charge, no matter what it is, anything over $200,000 they charge, he gets 10% of what their fee is. So the last 3 years, he's averaged over $250,000 a year as a director of a development authority. Whether the project's good or bad, his contract, he gets a bonus.
so the attorney's been along with that?
The attorneys are right in there with him.
They don't.
Because our county attorney makes $250,000 plus a year. And the attorney for the development authority, he's also locked into a lot of other people. But And ask, a lot of times when I want a document for a certain day, I'll ask for it for 3 other days, so they won't know exactly which document I really want. And it's a game to it, because they're playing a game with us by telling us they don't have documents.
Yeah.
Just like the document that I had,
Yeah,
oh, we don't have that, Roy. So I finally said, you got it, here it is.
so you're hiding in plain sight, are you?
Yes, and you can do this off state and federal, just like how many people would ever do a open records request to Homeland Security? Who would touch Homeland Security? They'd be afraid they'd come after you. Let me tell you a little bit more about the Homeland Security story. When I called the guy to tell him it was on Channel 46, it's now public. When we got done talking, he said, Mr. Sparks, I want to thank you for what you do. He said, because I want to tell you something else. I live in Douglas County. So you never know who's on the other end of the phone and what connections they have. And just like open records request, I've got a relationship in Douglas, Paulding. I've kind of moved out of Paulding and concentrated on Douglas, because a few years ago, there was nobody in Paulding. I was at the meetings filming with my little camera. Be 2 people sitting there. But after the group finally come forward fighting the airport, I started looking at home. And when I started looking at home, I said, guys, I got more problems at home than y'all got up here. I'm going to hand this off to y'all, and I'm going to Douglas County where I live. I said, we got so many things. One project, I don't know if y'all heard about a project called Fox Hall. Fox Hall. Got 30 years. 0 taxes. Except for a little land. They're going to pay taxes based on the land being vacant. Not only that, they're going to make pilot payments for the taxes to this county. The county is going to in turn hand them a check back for the school taxes to make their bond payment. A billionaire comes out and builds a resort, and he's going to get half the money back. They're spending $89 million to build a resort. In 30 years, he's going to get $40 million back in school money, county tax money they're going to hand back to him. Where is it? Did any of y'all ever get a tax break?
But it's economic development, Roy.
Yeah, bringing jobs, bringing jobs. And anytime, another thing, if any of y'all want one of these books, they didn't come in yet, I have ordered them. But one of them is the Sunshine Law and the other's Open Records. They're good guides. If you will give me your name and address, I will personally mail you one when they come in. And any questions y'all have, most of you have my card. Another thing I'll hit on right quick, me and James both, I do tax appeals, property values in 10 different counties. And that's another business that I have. I know y'all enjoyed all your tax assessments, because the whole county of Carroll just got reassessed.
We've already appealed.
And I encourage everybody to appeal your property values. And me and James has had a couple of meetings teaching people how to do that free of charge, because another people have got to understand that's your right to appeal your value. Don't let them intimidate you. Anytime I can ever help you, James, either one, he and I know each other well. I'm basically a kind of watchdog on my own, even though I'm associated with Georgia Watchdog. Just so y'all know, a couple of years ago, Common Cause of Georgia gave me a democracy award about 2 years ago. I was one of 3 people. I got a phone call one day from a guy named William Perry, the president of Common Cause. He said, Roy Sparks. I said, yes, sir. He introduced himself, and he said, you've been nominated for a democracy award. I said, how'd that happen? He said, well, you've been nominated, and he said, if you are given that award, would you accept it? I said, well, normally I'm not about awards. I said, but if this will shed light on watchdogs and what we do and the accountability that we hold people to, I'll accept your award. So that they called back and said, you were nominated and you got past the board. So we would need to come out and do an interview with you to do it the banquet the night you get your award. They'll play your interview video. So he came out, set up his camera in front of me, and he sat there and asked me questions, did my little video thing. And when he got it all packed up in the bag, I said, now you sit in this chair and I'm going to sit over here, I'm going to interview you. I said, out of the state of Georgia, y'all picked 3 people. I've got to know, why did you pick me? And he said, Mr. Sparks, I said, please just call me Roy. We in my house here. No Mr. needed. He said, our board has been watching you for over 4 years. He said, we've been watching what you've been doing. And he said, our board has decided there's nobody in the state of Georgia that you're afraid of. And I said, well, let's rephrase that. Not that I'm not afraid of them, but I said, a lot of what I do, when you're exposing people and taking millions out of their pockets,
Oh, yeah,
shotgun shell doesn't cost much.
that's right.
You can be run off the road, and I think James also, I've been threatened, okay, over the years of being a watchdog for doing that county. Just like that in meetings. I've been told to back off, and I've had other things said to me. I said, it's not that I know what people do. It's not that I'm afraid. I said, I understand what I'm doing, and I know it's a dangerous job. Because when you are a watchdog, and you get as intense as we do, we get into dangerous territory. When you're fighting a man that's a billionaire doing a $180 million project total, and you're trying to stop it, money has power. And just like I talked to somebody earlier, and they was talking about somebody been told to back off. There's a lot of power in politics.
Yes.
All the way through the state and federal level. And understand, if there's anything me or James can ever do, call us. We're not afraid. I'll go speak at the ARC in Atlanta. I'll come out here and speak to y'all, and I thank y'all for getting involved, because that's what me and James love, is to see people coming up, getting involved. The only way you're going to make a dent in it is get involved, go to the meetings. And there's times that I will get on the telephone and start calling people that won't get up and speak, but every warm body sitting in that audience, especially sometimes tell them all to wear a red shirt. Well, you got 15 people over here with red shirts on. The people on the podium got to take notice.
Yeah.
Let them know you're watching them. And the Georgia Watch, the Common Cause thing, he said, this award is for you holding the powerful people accountable. You've got to hold them accountable and let them know, hey, I'm watching. And stay on them all the time. And video every meeting. And another thing you can do, Penny, is try to get it to where y'all's work session is actually recorded.
We gotta get to a work session.
Yeah.
That would be great. Yeah.
But anytime I can help, all you gotta do is pick up the phone and call me.
You've been so motivational. I've just sat here and all. I mean, I literally thank you.
Because, and you gotta understand, just like with your husband, he suffers in life. My better half suffers in life. Because there's nights I'm out in the yard like this, 11:30 at night on the telephone. Because I talk with my hands. I come in the house at 11:30 and finally have supper. I'm from Alabama, supper's not dinner. And just like there, along with me and James, we give a lot of the time of our lives for this cause, for the people. And when I ran for office, it was for the people. Because when you're doing you wrong, I got a problem.
Thank you, Roy. That's why I invited Roy. He's certainly been a motivation for me, and I meet a lot of people that are very motivating. I just want to share you, Richard mentioned the Sam Adams Tea Party Award. I helped to defeat 2 SPLOST votes in Douglas County because I felt like it was a bunch of projects that would have increased our property taxes, grown our government, the staff, the employees, and put a burden on us. And sure enough, it eventually did happen. But I helped to defeat 2 of them. And a group in Chicago, Illinois, somebody nominated me for this Tea Party Award. And we don't do this for recognition or rewards, but sometimes that happens. And it's much appreciated because we don't expect anything from anybody for what we do. But they did give me $5,000. And it was the last thing that I could have ever imagined that what I'm doing. You know, I defeated a SPLOST with $800 that somebody gave me, and I printed a bunch of literature, and I did on a shoestring in here. So that $5,000, I split some of it with the 2 partners I was working with, and the rest of it, basically, I put back in a little hole there and held it for when I do need money to do activism and stuff. It was certainly nice to have a little money to be able to say, that's not out of my pocket anymore. And so don't think that what you're doing, you're not going to be rewarded for it some way or somehow. And it may not be $5,000, but it's going to be worth $5,000 to anything that you can do. And I want to share this too. pick your battles. Pick your battles. There's a lot of things we can work on, a lot of things we can be combative about and stuff. There's some things a little more important than other things. But as you go forward, try to find what's the most important and what needs to be fixed and focus on that, because sometimes finding the big thing that needs to be fixed, sometimes then everything below that somehow will be fixed. You've got elections coming up. Please encourage people to run for office. There's nothing more fun than having 3 or 4 people running for the same office.
Exactly.
And at least the public has a choice, and they can at least have a choice when they go there. And if you don't like what you got now, you may have a choice. You know, maybe Penny's going to have 4 or 5 opponents. Okay, well, she's going to have to show her constituents what she does and how she represents. If somebody comes along and thinks they can do better than her, then the public will be able to vote on that. You got a small town here. A few dozen votes makes a difference in any election here. So if you want to get involved, please get involved. And again, I've always chosen not to be on the inside. I feel more I sleep better at night, I think, being on the outside, looking in and being able to go home at night and not have to, I can drop the baggage and go about my life and my business. But when it comes down time to represent, and I'm like with Roy, I've been in a room with 2 other people also, the board, the council, the commissioners, and 2 other people sitting in the room, and you feel like nobody gives a damn. I got 120,000 people, 130,000 people in Douglas County, and there's 2 sitting in the room here that care something about what's going on. And I look at it like, well, I get it. Maybe I got a little too much time on my hands. Okay, maybe I need to get a life, or maybe I need to do what I feel like. Sometimes we have a calling to do, and that's to go and yes, sometimes it's combative. Sometimes it's you're a contrarian. I've been called all kind of stuff, the gadfly and the troublemaker, these types of things. To me, it's all complimentary, and I just get all proud of myself when people call me names. Okay, but that's what we do. So thank you, Roy. Thank you, Richard.
Let me give you one other comment.
I think, did you have a question, honey?
Yes, I just wanted to make a statement. I worked for county government for 22 years, and so I know what all goes on there. But all of you have certainly opened my eyes to city government.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to be involved in that.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, let me give you a point on open records that both of us kind of forgot. I can send you a generic open records request form, okay? It can be handwritten on a napkin, but let me tell you one, always make them give you stamp receipt, date, a copy back. Along with that, on your open records request form, ask for an estimate of what they're going to do. I have paid as high as $400 for an open records request. Stack of documents this high.
Roy, I think that law actually states that if it's beyond a certain amount, they are to tell you.
Yes.
Yeah, so that you're not surprised. So you know, but generally speaking, now with electronics and email, that's why it's important that all documents are scanned. There's no need of having to sort through the file cabinet and pull the documents when we need to scan every document, PDF it, and it saves the clerk time and effort. And if she can email that to you without searching through a file cabinet and it's already there, it makes life easy for them. It makes life easy for you. And and building that rapport with the person, the record keeper, they're not your enemy. They're not, they're there to serve you. You're there. Don't make it hard on them, and they won't hopefully make it hard on you. And there should be no reason to have that.
Well, if it's on the internet, you don't have to ask them to copy anything.
I just want to add like one little thing before you go. You don't have to have a problem to want to open records request. And you may just have a question. And for me, what actually started one of the very first open records requests I made was probably, 15 years ago here, the first one I made in Carroll County. And I couldn't figure out how Carroll County had finally successfully passed a school splosh, but none of the money was being spent. I just wanted to know where our schools were. My son went to 6th grade, 6th through 12th was at the high school. There was a splosh wish list. The splosh had been voted in. And so that open records request was as simple as asking for a year's worth of minutes prior to that, when that splosh was, and finding out, because a tie vote, the money, they couldn't agree on what to put below the red line. So nothing was getting done. So sometimes an open records doesn't have to be, oh, I have a problem with what somebody did, or I'm looking to see. If you have a question about why your tax money isn't being spent, or if you want to know what's going on with a project that you vaguely recall hearing something about, an open records is to gain information. It is your ability to understand straight from the source what happened. And that was an eye-opener for me, and that eventually led to the involvement that ultimately had a House bill come in, and our school board was changed from a 6-member to a 7-member board to kind of take away that time power that kept. So sometimes you don't have to have a big problem, but you have a right to know if they've got a project started or they've collected money, why ain't that money being spent?
And I did want to emphasize something here, that SPOS projects should be predetermined, not after the fact. You need to get on top of your SPOS issues. If money has already been approved, you need to look back at the resolution and make sure that money has been approved and spent properly. And it's hard to enforce SPOS laws, but you need to at least try to spend the money properly and then move forward. Then you can make a decision. Do we want to vote yes on another SPOS, quite frankly, and make a decision? Did they use it wisely in the past? Are they going to use it wisely in the future? Thank you, Richard. You got anything else to add?
No, I don't have anything else, but I appreciate everybody that came today, and hope that we can have further meetings.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you all for doing this. It's a great thing you all do. Thank you.
Y'all be glad you got Penny.
Oh, thank God.